Coming up on Chapman News, the president continues to claim the election is rigged. We debunk fact from fiction. And setting new records, COVID-19 cases climb around the world. Are we due for another shutdown? And how to eat turkey while wearing a mask. Staying safe on Thanksgiving.
From Dodge College of Film and Media Arts, this is Chapman News.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Chapman News. I'm Nicole Zedek. A new high in COVID cases and a new low in democracy, as Donald Trump still refuses to acknowledge President-elect Joe Biden. Jasmine Sani begins our political coverage.
Thanks, Nicole. President-elect Biden is moving ahead at full speed while President Trump is out of view, still claiming he won. Jenna Perry has more on the Trump campaign's legal action following the election.
President Trump has yet to concede the election even a week after Biden's projected win. His campaign continues to charge unfounded claims of voter fraud. Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, says the campaign plans to file several lawsuits in states where Republican observers were not allowed to inspect ballots.
Not a single one was inspected, as the law required, and it amounts to about, just about the 700,000 votes that President Trump was ahead by 2 days ago that disappeared.
On Monday, the Trump campaign filed suit in Pennsylvania court, seeking an order to stop state officials from certifying Biden's victory, pointing to the mail-in system's lack of transparency compared to in-person voting. Their many other lawsuits challenge whether mail-in ballots should be counted. Several court battles are still pending. Attorney General William Barr authorized investigation into fraud allegations on Monday, leading the Justice Department's election crimes chief to resign out of protest. Judges in Nevada, Georgia, and Michigan have dismissed Trump's lawsuits, citing lack of evidence. But Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell still supports Trump's right to legally challenge the results.
Anyone who's running for office can exhaust concerns about counting in any court of appropriate jurisdiction.
So far, only 4 Republican senators have acknowledged Biden's win. The Trump campaign creating a political action committee called Save America in an effort to maintain control of the party and to fund his legal battles and campaign debt. Despite the opposition's refusal to acknowledge his victory, President-elect Joe Biden is starting the transition process. First by naming a team of experts to head the COVID-19 task force, but is facing pushback from the General Services Administration. The agency's administrator, Emily Murphy, a Trump appointee, is refusing to fund the transition or provide office space.
A delay in the transition process presents critical consequences, especially in the midst of a pandemic. With more insight into the process is our political expert, Professor Fred Smoller. Professor, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
So to begin, in our country's history, have we ever seen a transition as turbulent as this one?
But this is really incredibly unusual. The idea that the president of the United States who lost the election isn't conceding. After the election is over, the defeated party generally always concedes and wishes the other party well. In the case of the presidency, when people like Jimmy Carter or George H.W. Bush were defeated and they were one-term presidents, they did everything they could to help the next president to be effective. But particularly concerning is foreign policy. There's so much going on in the world, and the new president has to be brought up to speed.
So what will happen if Trump doesn't concede the race?
Oh, I don't think he ever will. He will not concede the race. I doubt if he'll come to the inauguration of President Biden. Nevertheless, he'll go to court. He'll make a lot of noise. But in the end, because there's been no widespread voter fraud, that's just ridiculous. Come January 20th, the president will be sworn in, President Biden. And before that, around December 14th, the electoral colleges will meet in the 50 states, and they will turn their vote over to the president of the Senate, which turns out to be Mike Pence.
How can Biden's transition proceed without funding, given the GSA's inaction right now?
Yeah, well, there are plenty of things he can do. He's going to select his chief of staff, as he did today. He will pick his cabinet members. He will go on the media, but it does make it just makes it very difficult. But then again, we can look at 2000. That was the disputed election, and we really didn't have an answer for 30 days. And so eventually, they are able to speed things through. It's just that the president is doing this intentionally, and it's very embarrassing and childish.
Well, Professor Smoller, thank you for your insight and thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
For Chapman News, I'm Jenna Perry. Back to you, Jasmine.
Thank you, Jenna. Democrats are eager to put President-elect Joe Biden in the White House, who is busy forming his cabinet to prepare for the transition. Biden choosing Ron Klain as his chief of staff on Wednesday. Klain was also Biden's chief of staff during his vice presidency. Looking forward to their continued partnership, Biden said, "Ron has been invaluable to me over the many years that we have worked together, including as we rescued the American economy from one of the worst downturns in our history in 2009 and later overcame a daunting public health emergency in 2014. Klain may offer a more scientific approach to the pandemic as well, given his experience with the Ebola crisis.
The Trump administration response to this crisis has clearly failed. Joe Biden would restore our ties to the WHO because you can't fight a global pandemic without a global approach.
Biden promises that his first 100 days in office will bring about real change, organizing his initiatives into 4 priorities: COVID-19, economic recovery, racial equity, and climate change. Biden will assemble a COVID-19 task force and invest in additional testing sites and methods to battle the threat of the coronavirus. He will also create a vaccine distribution plan and enforce a nationwide mask mandate. To help the nation recover from the pandemic, Biden will formulate a new COVID-19 aid package for families. In the future, Biden intends to offer assistance to state and local governments to reduce employee layoffs. Another major platform point for Biden's campaign rests on racial equality. The administration says it will push for racial equity in the workforce, in educational systems, and in affordable housing. To battle climate change, Biden will dedicate millions of jobs to offsetting the effects of man-made greenhouse gas emissions. Biden also plans to upgrade buildings and transportation systems, installing cleaner energy sources for infrastructure. But some current White House cabinet members are doubtful a transition of power will even take place come January.
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. All right, we're ready. The world is watching what's taking place here.
Some Congress members agree, calling the results of the presidential race fraudulent. And some congressional races in Georgia could also have a nationwide impact. Democrat Jon Ossoff is challenging incumbent Republican David Perdue in a tight race that sees neither candidate pulling a strong lead. Since both candidates are shy of a 50% majority, a runoff election will be held on January 5th. The same has occurred for the state's special election race, where Democrat Raphael Warnock is aiming to unseat Republican Kelly Loeffler. Warnock leads by 7%, and just based on public votes, he might win come January. These 2 runoff elections in Georgia could very well determine whether Democrats have a greater say in passing legislation. If Democrats secure just 2 more Senate seats, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris can then break 50-50 ties, giving Democrats a significant advantage. In the House of Representatives, Democrats retain majority control with 218 seats. But Republicans had a better turnout than expected this year, gaining 6 seats and Democrats losing 5. President Trump fired Defense Secretary Mark Espers through a tweet Monday afternoon, saying the Director of National Counterterrorism, Christopher Miller, will become acting secretary. Tensions rose between the president and Espers when he refused to send military troops into cities during the wave of Black Lives Matter protests. Espers had prepared his resignation in advance, and news organizations are suggesting FBI and CIA directors may be next on the chopping block. Although he lost the presidential race, Trump replacing the defense secretary position suggests he's not quite ready to go without some turbulence. Recounts are on the way, accompanied by lawsuits and legal action. Given Trump's persistent claims of voter fraud, it is unclear whether he'll verbally concede the race to Biden. We'll be sure to keep you updated on all the latest in this seemingly never-ending election. I'm Jasmine Sani. Back to you, Nicole.
Thanks, Jasmine. Despite the president contesting the election results, Americans flooded cities across the country to celebrate Biden's victory. Sydney Green has more.
Celebrations erupted across the country after Joe Biden's projected election victory last weekend. From LA to Chicago to Philadelphia, Americans poured into the streets to pop champagne, host dance parties, car parades, and even celebratory trombone solos after the prolonged election process finally came to an end Saturday.
Let it begin! Let the healing begin!
But not everyone marched in celebration of Biden's projected win. Trump supporters flooded the streets, polling stations, city and state capitals in support of the president's unsubstantiated claims of a stolen election. Some celebrators also drew criticism over not taking proper distancing measures, with many wearing masks but not socially distancing themselves. While Americans were making their voices heard, the president was at his golf course in Potomac Falls, Virginia, when the news broke of Biden's win. Reporting for Chapman News, this is Sydney Green.
Thanks, Sydney. And we also saw celebrations outside of the U.S. Melissa Cho has more on what Biden's victory means for the rest of the world.
Welcome back, America. Foreign leaders coming together and congratulating both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on their election win feels like when your extended family welcomes you back home at the airport. While people in the U.S. celebrated by dancing and honking their cars on the streets, global political leaders saturate Twitter with a flurry of festive tweets. That includes Fiji's prime minister, who is ecstatic about rebuilding relationships with the U.S. While a large part of the world relishes in Biden's triumph, what does the future of international relationships look like? Biden already committing to forge stronger ties with other nations, promising to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement. Moreover, scientists and environmentalists are taking a huge sigh of relief at the Democratic candidate's win. The incoming president has already pledged to make U.S. electricity production carbon-free by 2035. Both the EU Vice President Josep Borrell and German Chancellor Angela Merkel are hopeful of a refreshing transatlantic friendship, which Chancellor Merkel calls irreplaceable. Biden also vows to rejoin the World Health Organization on his first day in office, and the WHO chief has already expressed his anticipation at collaborating again.
We look forward to working with this administration very closely.
Under the Trump administration, the U.S.'s official withdrawal would be set in July of next year, and the country still owes about $80 million in outstanding membership dues.
We regret the decision.
Experts admitting that the U.S. has become an unreliable ally over the past 4 years, meaning Biden is going to have to work hard to rebuild trust between the U.S. and other nations. In February, Biden claimed that as former vice president, he had worked more closely than any other world leader with Chinese leader Xi Jinping at that point in time. President Xi called Biden his, quote, old friend back in 2013 when they worked together. Although we have witnessed a crumbling U.S.-China relationship under the Trump presidency, Chinese analysts predict the possibility for more counter-tactics, including a crackdown on China's oppression of ethnic minorities and Hong Kong. On the other hand, some Chinese experts also are hopeful that Biden will pursue a more traditional diplomatic approach. Russia maintains radio silence on its reaction to Biden's win. While Biden's plan for the Kremlin remains ambiguous, Russian political analysts are confident that the Kremlin should be prepared to brace for unsettling scenarios. Also unclear is the country's role in the Middle East under the new presidency. So far, Biden has pledged to maintain a small military presence in northeast Syria, while continuing sanctions on the Syrian government, similar to Trump's strategy. Biden vows to prioritize American interests in future Middle Eastern involvements. Pieces of the foreign policy puzzle will slowly come together once Biden assumes the 46th presidential role in January. Reporting internationally in Taipei, I'm Melissa Cho for Chapman News.
Thanks, Melissa. And coming up on Chapman News, coronavirus setting records around the world. Will we have another shutdown? And as cases climb, so does the minimum wage. Will you be getting a raise? Grim coronavirus numbers this week as cases worldwide topping 52 million. Another global COVID record as the daily death toll jumped by more than 12,000. It started with toilet paper hoarding, but now France is refrigerator stocking up in preparation for a possible Pfizer vaccine rollout to store the vaccines. But Pfizer isn't the only company making headlines this week. Along with an exciting update from Pfizer earlier this week, GlaxoSmithKline and Canada's Medicago are advancing their clinical trials, with over 30,000 globally enrolled volunteers. While we still can't put all our vaccine eggs in one basket, top virus expert Dr. Anthony Fauci is optimistic about the trials, having expressed faith in the rapid vaccine development, saying that COVID-19 won't be considered a pandemic for, quote, a lot longer. Some good news for Germany, the country is starting to see its infection rate flatten. The European nation reimposed lockdown measures in early November, and although it seems that they are paying off, citizens are told to stay cautiously optimistic. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky confirming on Monday that he had contracted COVID-19, and Ukraine saw the largest one-day increase, reporting over 11,000 new cases just yesterday. Back here in the U.S., hospitals are seeing a record number of COVID-19 patients, and projections show the country is on track to reaching 20 million cases by Christmas. Just yesterday, the U.S. setting another record number of daily cases at 150,000. Despite the rising numbers, some hopeful vaccine developments this week. Adriana Ferrari has the latest. Adriana?
Despite the horrifying numbers, there is some good news this week. 2 COVID-19 treatments made headlines, the FDA approving the use of Eli Lilly's antibody treatment for emergency use. Donald Trump received a similar drug while hospitalized with the coronavirus. Pfizer Incorporated also releasing early data that their COVID-19 vaccine is more than 90% effective. Partnered with the German company BioNTech, Pfizer projects that the vaccine will not be ready before 2021.
Then the next steps after that will be approval and deploying the vaccine primarily to the frontline workers who are right now are at most risk of contracting the coronavirus, as well as special populations that we've talked about before, the elderly patients and also those who have pre-existing conditions that would make them vulnerable to contracting this virus.
The CDC has also released data showing that wearing masks not only protects those around you, but yourself as well. This news contradicts earlier CDC findings and further encourages people to wear masks as the pandemic continues to plague the United States.
It's now shown that, as a matter of fact, there's also the added benefit to protect you from droplets and virus that's coming your way.
But while we await a vaccine, cases in the United States continue to climb to a staggering 10.6 million, with approximately 240,000 deaths. Orange County is also making headlines, as the region is close to losing its current status in the less restrictive red tier and return to the purple tier. This is due to a recent influx in cases, and the state health department continues to closely monitor the county. Back at Chapman's campus, there is a current total of 28 people within the community currently infected. This includes 18 students living on campus, 8 living near campus, and 2 at the Rinker campus. No staff or faculty are currently infected. I'm Adriana Ferrari for Chapman News. Back to you, Nicole.
And while we await a vaccine, roommate dynamics are changing as people adjust to living within COVID guidelines. I took a closer look. Living with roommates has always been difficult, with fights over dishes and whose turn it is to take out the trash. But add a pandemic to the mix, and roommate dynamics can seem almost impossible.
I actually had multiple house meetings about this, trying to kind of establish the benchmark of what is okay and what's not okay.
In this house of 6, roommates have different ideas of how to live in their final year of college.
I don't want to put other people in danger, and I myself can wait for this whole situation to be over.
I'm gonna go until I get it. I don't want to put my life on hold because the rest of the world is pretty much doing that for me.
Some students want to go out and socialize, while others want to stay socially distant. So how do you come to a compromise?
If you're going out or bring someone over, first text the house chat and let everyone know and make sure everyone's okay with it.
We kind of wanted each other to limit who we saw, and be safe for our other roommates.
But setting up boundaries can be difficult, especially when you're living with friends.
We're not going to force everyone to quarantine because we have no right to do that.
I felt kind of wrong limiting my friend's freedom. If someone wanted to go out, I'm not going to say no.
At the end of the day, there's still a mixture of emotions between these roommates, as they grapple with maintaining friendships while also trying to be good roommates.
I should be able to make my own social and event decisions in terms of the pandemic.
If you're going to go out, then take the necessary steps to quarantine and do things like that until you test, whether positive or negative.
It's important to have open communication and lay out clear guidelines that everyone feels comfortable with. That way you can make the most out of your college experience while making sure everyone in your house feels safe. And students are also facing the question of what to do about their student loans. As part of the coronavirus stimulus package, President Trump signed an executive order to give student loan borrowers a break from payments until 2021. Now, President-elect Biden says he will forgive $10,000 in student debt for all borrowers. He also pledges to relieve the rest of debt for those who attended public universities and earn less than $125,000 a year. But nothing is certain until Congress passes new legislation. But good news for many young adults this week. Floridians just voted to increase minimum wage by 2026. Colette No has more on how this will affect our economy.
Increasing minimum wage to what activists call a living wage has been an ongoing economic issue. Now, Florida is the 8th state to raise the minimum wage to $15 per hour. And if all states follow Florida's lead, this will affect an estimated 33 million American workers. The initiative will pull 1.3 million Americans out of poverty.
That's a policy failure, that there are people in this world whose labor is only worth $7 an hour. And we need to fix that policy failure.
But the impact on mom and pop shops like these in Chapman's college town have been one of the main arguments against the equitable policy. So, what will happen to small businesses if we raise the minimum wage? I spoke with a grocery store owner who asked to remain anonymous. He explained the increase in California's minimum wage has been one of the reasons his stores closed down.
When I came to California in '79, it was 25 independent groceries. Now it's only about 6. If I raise the minimum to $15 to the people and I don't raise my prices, that's going to eat from my profit.
A huge number, a disproportionate number of the people who employ low-skilled workers and actually pay the minimum wage are small businesses. In all likelihood, they're going to raise their prices. And the people who pay those prices are the very people that you're trying to help.
An increase of just $1 an hour can cost small business owners tens of thousands of dollars in payroll costs each year.
Every hour that you pay an employee, you have to pay payroll taxes. So the one that benefit is the government, not the person that got the raise.
Hampton said increasing paychecks will lead to low-wage jobs going extinct.
But in the long run, all of those employers are sitting there thinking to themselves, how can I find a way to replace this worker with a machine?
Now that Joe Biden has been elected president, he has pledged to boost the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Yet, the bill passing is highly unlikely with a Republican-controlled Senate. For Chapman News, I'm Colette Ngo.
Thanks, Colette. As we await to see what our next administration does, we will also await the effects on our economy. And coming up, we'll have your latest hurricane update and local weather forecast.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls.
Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
Earlier this week, subtropical storm THETA set the record for most storms in a hurricane season, breaking the previous record from 2005. THETA is the 29th named storm of the Atlantic 2020 hurricane season, but the season isn't over until November 30th. Barbara Fox has more national weather updates along with our local forecast. Barbara?
Thanks, Nicole. Here in Orange County, it is 67 degrees, and unlike the showers we saw last week, we can expect sunshine all throughout the week. Before I head over and show you our local forecast, let's see what's happening across the country. Up in Seattle, Washington, it is 50 degrees with showers. Down in San Francisco, it is 57 degrees with some rain as well. It is going to be 70 degrees and sunny in Vegas. And as we head over to the Midwest, it's going to cool down to 62 degrees in Denver, Colorado. Heading further down to Texas, it's going to be 82 degrees and showers are expected. In Minneapolis, it's going to be 36 degrees and it'll be 41 degrees in Chicago. In Atlanta, it's going to be warm and sunny with a high of 71 degrees. And up in Washington, D.C., it is 62 degrees. And down in Florida, it will be 83 and sunny. In New York, it will be 53 degrees and showers are expected. Taking a look at our 7-day forecast, it's going to be sunny all throughout the week. On Friday, it's going to be 67 degrees, and on Saturday, it's going to be 71 with a high of 85 on Monday. And then temperatures are expected to decrease and stay in the 70s Wednesday through Friday. I'm Barbara Fox here with your local and national weather forecast. And here with your local and national sports is Erin Coogan. Erin?
Thanks, Barbara. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Best Campus Sports Show. I'm Erin Coogan, and more importantly, welcome back to Wilson Stadium. That's right, after 247 days, and yes, I have been counting, Wilson Field is open again for both student use and athletic practices. Things look a little bit different around here, so let's go check it out. Whether you're an athlete or not, the first steps in gaining access to the field is to get cleared to be on campus. You can use the Chapman Student Health Portal to find out all the details on campus COVID protocol and information on how to get your clearance at the athletics portal. Then it's as simple as showing your daily survey, showing you're cleared to be on campus, showing your student ID, and getting an on-site temperature check. This past week also marks the first time this year that teams could come out and use equipment at their practices. This is a huge step in the right direction. And behind me, you can see there are fences that section off different parts of the field, which encourages social distancing. And around the perimeter of the track, there are different hand sanitizing stations, all in an effort to stop the spread of COVID-19.
A lot of guidelines, a lot of sanitizing of balls and hands and everything. I feel safer here working out with athletes than probably going to the grocery store.
It really does feel great knowing athletics is picking up again and that this new normal is keeping all of our student athletes, coaches, and staff as safe as possible. And the NFL released a new measure this past week in hopes to encourage diversity staffing in higher level positions. Under this resolution, teams will be rewarded a third-round compensatory pick in the draft if a minority staffer is hired to be a head coach or general manager with another organization. Currently, only 5 of the 32 NFL teams have a minority in a head coaching position and only 2 in the general manager position. The league released a statement explaining how this resolution, quote, complements the overall collection of things we're doing to try to increase mobility among, in particular, black coaches and females as well. And after a 7-month postponement, the Masters is finally underway. Teeing off just yesterday in Augusta, Georgia, this year's star-studded golf championship is as illustrious as ever. Tiger Woods hit an early 3 pars and 2 birdies to score an impressive 3 under par in the first 9, all with the hopes of defending his 5th green jacket. That's all I got for you this week. I'm Erin Coogan, and I'll see you next week on the Best Campus Sports Show.
The world loses a beloved longtime host and gains a female vice president. We'll have reactions and more coming up.
I want to eat apples and bananas.
eat apples and bananas? Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
A United Nations report shows that globally, we have made massive progress in educating girls over the past 25 years. The report shows that since 1995, the proportion of girls receiving an education has risen by 16%. Additionally, 3 times more women are now enrolled in universities around the world. And from one educated woman to another, Maddie Fabricant has your entertainment report for the week. Maddie?
Hello everyone, welcome back to Entertainment. We hate to start this week off on a low note, but we lost a beloved American and Canadian television icon this week. Alex Trebek has passed away after a long battle with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He was 80 and, according to his wife, got to spend his last day exactly as he had planned, watching the sunset with her. Executive producer Mike Richards paid a touching tribute to Trebek at the start of their show.
We will air his final 35 episodes as they were shot. That's what he wanted. On behalf of everyone here at Jeopardy, thank you for everything, Alex.
On a much lighter note, we are happy to announce that a character that we've only ever seen on screens is now a reality. Madame Vice President. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who played the VP on HBO's long-running Veep, was one of the first to congratulate Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, tweeting, "Madam Vice President is no longer a fictional character." Actress Bellamy Young, whose character on ABC Scandal evolved from First Lady to President, also spoke in favor of Harris. For Gratefully, this moment is not a work of fiction. We wrote this and it's up to us to see where it goes from here. The election results are breaking more than just the glass ceiling. The stock market seeing a dramatic increase in the days following the election for theaters and theme parks. Variety reporting that AMC Entertainment, which has faced the prospect filing for bankruptcy, finished the day up 51%, and Cinemark climbed 45%. But on the flip side, shares for stay-at-home companies such as Zoom and Netflix are dropping with the election announcement. Speaking of shares, TikTok wants to know what's up. Earlier this year, President Trump vowed to remove TikTok from U.S. markets. Now that Biden is the president-elect, TikTok is demanding action. And some more exciting news this week as Nathan Gossman's new documentary, I Am Greta, premieres today on Hulu. The film follows young climate activist Greta Thunberg on her 2019 trip across the Atlantic Ocean on a wind-powered yacht to address the United Nations Climate Action Summit. It's definitely a big week for television, with CBS setting its new diversity goals and A&E networks pledging new Veterans Day initiatives. Beginning next season, CBS hopes to cast at least 50% Black, Indigenous, and people of color on their reality shows.
And sad news for Disney employees this week. A Disney official says that both Disneyland and California Adventure Parks will remain closed for the rest of 2020 and not reopen until 2021. But the sad news doesn't end there.
The company announcing more furloughs at both Disney California theme park locations as the country battles a new surge of the COVID-19 pandemic. As more employees are sent home, I took a closer look at its impact on college students.
As Disney employees prepare for another round of layoffs, those furloughed in September are still reeling from the loss, especially employees who relied on the company for education benefits. The 2018 Disney Aspire program was created to provide hourly employees with access to free college-level programs and books. The company planned to invest $150 million over 5 years to fully fund workers' education. But now, many employees are losing their Aspire benefits along with their jobs. I spoke with Chapman graduate Sarah Boardman, who never thought of going to graduate school until she learned of the program.
It's a free master's degree, and I'm not planning on being a Disney performer forever, so I should hop on this opportunity, do it while I got my good Disney years left, you know.
Sarah's good Disney years turned into being furloughed in March, and then she was one of the 28,000 people laid off in October. That same month, her tuition benefits would be cut off too.
So it doesn't really feel like a time where I could just stop or give up or quit. I literally have 2 courses left to take. So, Aspire Benefits kind of like walked me to the edge, and then they were like, okay, have fun.
Despite this, Sarah says she is grateful to the University of Denver for their efforts in making tuition more affordable. The university, now offering a corporate tuition rate and grants specifically for students previously in the Aspire program. A class that would have cost up to $1,500 now costs them close to $500. Sarah says that she is lucky to be $5,000 away from her master's degree, but that many students are not so fortunate.
I took advantage of it because it happened to align with, what I was looking to do, and it was free. Otherwise, wouldn't have been able to afford it. B, just probably wouldn't. I didn't want to go into any more student debt.
About 20,000 employees are enrolled in the program, but Disney has yet to reveal how many Aspire students have been laid off. But with another round of furloughs coming, at least some Aspire students are expected to lose their benefits.
Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week with the latest in entertainment. I'm Maddie Fabricant. Back to you, Nicole.
Thanks, Maddie. Colleges across the country are sending students home after Thanksgiving break for the rest of the semester. There, they will take classes completely virtually. Jules Rector has the story on why Chapman's policies are different.
Despite fewer people traveling this year, experts are preparing for an increase in travel this holiday season. Many universities decided to cut the fall semester short or finish the latter part online to avoid a post-holiday travel outbreak. Orange County is expected to return to the highest risk level after Thanksgiving, which means Chapman might have to roll back on-campus activity despite their original plans to continue with in-person instruction after break.
To curb the spread of COVID-19, testing will be required for students returning to campus following the holiday and before spring semester. But is this enough to prevent an outbreak?
Our medical expert, Dr. Jerica Lamb, says that it's safer for students to stay home.
So it would be best to just call it for what it is and to be part of this contribution to lower the rates of infection in Orange County by not having students return to school after the holidays.
She says we should be prepared for an increase in cases as many students are still expected to travel.
I would not be surprised that there's going to be a surge in infection rates after Thanksgiving, simply because coronavirus seem to proliferate much better in colder weather. So the last thing we want is celebrating the holidays and having our grandparents or parents end up in the hospital afterwards.
Dr. Lamb is not alone in her concerns. Chapman student Charlie Smith also worries about a possible community outbreak.
Hopefully they'll keep the campus closed after Thanksgiving.
Charlie is excited but anxious about flying home next week, worrying about the health of his family and himself. He has decided to stay home in New Orleans for the rest of the semester.
My grandmother actually lives with my family, so that's why I didn't go back home this summer, so I didn't get to see my family. I haven't seen them in a year.
If you do plan on traveling for the holidays, make sure to wear a mask, keep 6 feet of distance from fellow travelers, wash your hands often, and avoid touching your nose, face, eyes, and mouth. Reporting from Orange, California, I'm Jules Rector for Chapman News.
Thanks, Jules. And before you gobble away, be sure to follow us on social media at Chapman News and subscribe to our YouTube channel at chapmannews.tv. I'm Nicole Zedek. We'll see you next week.